Thank you everyone for attending. My name is Carole Reed. I'm a program director in the Directorate for Engineering. And under that, I'm in the division called CBET, which stands for Chemical, Bioengineering, Environmental, and Transport Systems. And under that, I have a core program called Electrochemical Systems. And I'm here representing the whole directorate. So one of these impossible tasks of kind of outlining what a $800 million organization does in about 30 minutes. So I'll try to do as best I can. I'm not going to cover everything, but I hope to give you guys a broad stroke of what all the opportunities are for you at NSF in the Directorate for Engineering, regardless of your career stage. So this slide just gives you an idea of kind of the role of NSF in academic funding. And we fund a large portion of the academic research done in the country. And you can see in engineering, approximately, I think 44% of the research funded in engineering is by NSF. And so we have a clear role in engineering research science, especially fundamental engineering research science. One of the themes I hope to portray to you today is, regardless of your career stage, you have a role at NSF. And so we have programs that in engineering, and of course at NSF, that scale from single investigator projects, typically those are at the core programs, to small teams, to large center type efforts. And the activities can range from a single discipline through convergent research, team research. And we have programs for undergraduates, graduate students, postdocs, and faculty at various stages of your career. And NSF's Engineering Directorate funds primarily fundamental engineering science, but we also have programs that start to go towards translational research as well. And it varies from use-inspired to basic research. And so regardless of the types of research questions that you're doing, if it's engineering fundamental research, there should be a home for you at NSF. And one of the ways that you navigate NSF, because we are quite distributed, is hopefully, I think it was the phrase from yesterday is what, ask early and ask often. And that theme applies here of, I'm a program director and we work for you, so we're a resource for you. But, so it's kind of, don't be afraid to ask program directors questions, because we are a resource for you. So that's another theme I hope to really get through. And, oh, you're taking away 4 minutes of my time already. Okay, so here's the general structure of the Engineering Directorate. We have 5 main divisions. They're in the dark blue. I'm from CBET. We also have Civil, Mechanical, and Manufacturing Innovation, CMMI, Electrical, Communications, and Cyber Systems, ECCS, and then Engineering, Education, and Centers, EEC. We also have a kind of cross-discipline office of EFMA, which is Emerging Frontiers and Multidisciplinary Activities. As you can see, not just engineering, but we do have a lot of acronyms at NSF. And so I'm trying to define them for the first time. So apologies if I just go into acronymies. I'm trying to discipline myself. So programs, just a broad strut of this. So, for example, in our EFMA office, they run a program called Emerging Frontiers in Research and Innovation. And I'll talk about this a little bit. But these are kind of small team research, and the topics are really generated both in a collaboration, both with NSF program directors and the research community, of having a broad process of getting in topics that are usually run 2 years in a row for these kind of medium scale $2 million 4-year projects. And I'll go in a little bit more. My home division is CBET, Chemical, Bioengineering, and Environmental Transport Systems. And we have 4 main clusters. I'm in the Chemical Process Systems cluster, and then we have Engineering, Biology, and Health, Transport Phenomena, Environmental Engineering, and Sustainability. Now, under those 4 we have like 16 core programs in CBET, so we're definitely very, very segmented. And it's through those what we call core programs that you'll submit proposals, such as your unsolicited proposals or your career proposals. CMMI, I already defined it, has also 5 clusters, and their clusters are advanced manufacturing, dynamics, control and cognition, mechanics and engineering materials, engineering for civil infrastructure, and operations and design. And again, under these 5 clusters, they have also individual core programs, such as, some examples are advanced manufacturing, there's operations engineering, and many other programs that, again, it's a program level. So I think one theme is, sometimes I've heard people today saying, yeah, I'm going to submit a proposal to CBET. Well, technically, yes, but you have to drill down a little further. Typically for submitting your proposals, it's usually to a core program if it's not to a solicitation. In ECCS, they do have 3 main clusters, and that's where you submit your unsolicited proposals and your career proposals too. And so their 3 clusters are communications, circuits and sensing systems, electronics, photonics and magnetic devices, and energy, power, control and networks. And so these are very broad clusters that they have. Definitely, I think, at least 2 program directors assigned to each cluster. And so that's kind of the level of where you're submitting your proposals to. And in EEC, Engineering, Education, and Centers Division, they have core programs through their Engineering, Education, Research, and Broadening Participation Research. That's 2 of their clusters. And then they have another cluster that holds engineering centers, and then programs supporting engineering workforce development. I'll kind of cover them a little later in the talk. This just gives you some stats of engineering. I wasn't kidding. I'm trying to kind of give you an idea of what we do. Almost 800 million, this was FY23, of activity in this talk. So, but what I want to really emphasize is the numbers, the people effective. And so in FY23, we had over 22,000 people touched, whether it's through graduate students, undergraduate students, researchers, through our funding. And so we have a large proposal load. I think in career, the last several years in career, Engineering Directorate received the most career proposals, but we're all working for you in trying to find out what is the best home for your research ideas. I want to just give you an idea of our strategic plan. And it's really, again, focused on you as the research community and in our impacts to both the research community and us as a nation. And so our mission is really to transform our world for a better tomorrow by driving discovery, inspiring innovation, enriching education, and accelerating access. And so we want to be a global leader in identifying and catalyzing fundamental engineering research, innovation, and education. And that's one goal of all NSF investments, is fundamental knowledge in terms of the research, but also the education piece. And I think that's one clear distinguishing feature of NSF investments and proposals compared to maybe proposals you might submit to another mission agency that has a different mission. In NSF, our clear core mission is, again, research and education. So first I'm going to give you some examples of how we're helping to propel leadership in this transformational engineering research opportunities. And I was talking to someone, I think yesterday, and I was thinking, all the solicitations I'm going to highlight, and it's not an exhaustive list. I thought, if I'm asked to do this again, I'm going to come up with some bingo cards or something based on solicitation number that people can kind of check off as you go on and yell bingo when you've completed your card. So I'll just do the best I can. So this is just gives you a broad brush of how we're really doing our investments. And we have 4 research themes, and these are the horizontal: clean energy, climate change adaptation and mitigation, bioeconomy, and biomanufacturing. and next-gen microelectronics and wireless. Those are, first of all, I want to make clear that those are not the only topics we're funding. We have, again, those those core programs that I kind of highlighted at the beginning that are really eager to have your research ideas if you do not do research in one of these themes. And we also recognize that broadening participation, equity, justice, and access, and sustainability and resilience, and partnerships for translation are all necessary to achieve our goals and progress. And so we're trying to implement and execute programs and partnerships that help us basically achieve our priorities in broadening participation in engineering. Again, the sustainable and resilient solutions and the partnerships and equity, justice, and access. This first project, this is actually a NSF-funded partnership, ERVA, which stands for Engineering Research Visioning Alliance. And this was a project that I think started at least 2 or 3 years ago. And it's an NSF-funded opportunity, but it's a partnership that its purpose is to work with the research community, you, to identify future research, engineering research directions. And so on this slide, we've highlighted some of their recent events, and example of a report from a visioning event. But their purpose is to work with the community to identify future opportunities for engineering to take a lead for research with substantial impact. And they hold these visioning events with the community to identify research opportunities. So this tells both the community and NSF Engineering, since they're kind of founded for us, to what are some future opportunities that NSF might want to highlight. We had clean energy as a direction, and here is just some examples in the area of clean energy. I'm still working on it now, but we had a Dear Colleague letter, series of Dear Colleague letters last spring on clean energy topics, DCL 108, 109, that we're still working through because we had such a huge outcome response to that. And here I have 2 DCLs here, the net zero climate goals by 2050 and the critical aspects for sustainability. I think it was explained yesterday, Dear Colleague letters. So these are letters that tell the research community that, hey, we're interested in these research topics that you would submit to the core programs. And then I have an example partnership that's done through a core program, through CBET's Fluid Dynamics program, where they're working with the DOE EERE, Engineering Research, Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Office of DOE on wind technology. And you can have a proposal for that partnership through that core program. And then I'll also highlight a little later the intern program, which is a supplement program for graduate students to get an industrial or laboratory research experience as a supplement as part of an NSF grant, in addition to their thesis work. So for climate change and adaptation, I'm highlighting some activities. I already mentioned the top one. The Strengthening American Infrastructure is a solicitation, okay? Remember, that's an opportunity that usually has a specific deadline, and it might have more requirements than is stated in the PAPG. And this is really an effort that's across NSF, and it focuses on human-centered, use-inspired fundamental research to strengthen U.S. infrastructure. And then I have another example of a DCL, Civil Infrastructure Research for Climate Change Mitigation. And this is conducted through CMMI division, and they're asking for eager proposals, research proposals, or conference proposals in those topics that you would submit to the core programs that are participating in that Dear Colleague letter. So these were what I today talking about opportunities, but we also invest in infrastructure. So this mid-scale research infrastructure is not solely an engineering activity, it's across the foundation. But this is an activity that's currently running through 23-24 that invests in large-scale infrastructure. So there's R1 is less than 20 million, and R2 is 20 to 100 million. So these are almost like new user facilities that would be invested in, and engineering participates in this. And we also have infrastructure through, for example, the National Nanotechnology Coordinating Infrastructure, which has 16 user facilities that you can sign up to use their capabilities as well. And then we have the Natural Hazards Engineering Research Infrastructure that has 8 experimental facilities and cyber infrastructure to also leverage the resources that you have at your particular institution to do research in these different topic areas. Another theme is the bioeconomy and biotechnology research. Currently, in EFRI, the Emergent Frontiers in Research and Innovation, that was the program that I kind of highlighted in the EFMA office at the top. They are currently doing a topic on biocomputing through engineering organoid intelligence, BEGIN, IO, I guess. And so, again, this was a topic that was generated through a cooperation of ideas from the community and NSF program officers. And when they do these topics, they usually run them for 2 cycles. And so I think this probably is the second cycle. And so I think the way it usually goes is they'll have another process to start to identify the next set of EFRI topics next year. Maybe I think they run that next year, and then they do also the next topic identification. And then we also have bio design. This is a DCL that involves a partnership with engineering, bio, and TIP. And then also another DCL on sentinel systems to recognize biological threats. And so these, again, are example of Dear Colleague letters that tell the research community, that we are interested in these types of proposals, and these proposals usually go to the core programs that are listed on the DCL that are participating in that particular DCL. Future manufacturing. One program I want to highlight is a solicitation, future manufacturing, and this is a solicitation that it's across NSF, so it's led by engineering, but it involves, I think, every research directorate in engineering, and it's focusing on research and education of the future workforce to overcome scientific, technical, educational, economic, and social barriers in order to catalyze new manufacturing that doesn't exist today. And it has been having 3 main thrust areas covering biomanufacturing, cyber, and eco-manufacturing. And so we're in the midst of reviewing the current cycle that basically came in this spring. We have another Dear Colleague letter that I want to highlight, the Next Generation Supply Chains. And this is run out of, I believe, our CMMI office of programs that are looking for fundamental research topics to kind of support that. And then we also had microelectronics as one of the emphasized areas. And so here's 2 examples. The first one is supplements. And this is an activity, this is a Dear Colleague letter, and it's a collaboration with engineering, SIZE, and MPS. And it's for supplements to access fab infrastructure to help build small, not maybe prototypes, but on the way to prototypes of various semiconductor microelectronics that you might have, and it's supplements to existing NSF grant. And then we have this bottom one, the Advanced Chip Engineering Design and Fabrication, is a solicitation, and it's actually a partnership with Taiwan. And so these are projects that are partnering with, I believe, a organization or researchers that have access to a fab in Taiwan to do the research as well. So this is an example of an international partnership through a solicitation. And then we also have to highlight some opportunities in quantum. And so quantum information science and technology is a priority for the United States. And here I list a couple of dear colleague letters and also a solicitation in various quantum topics. And these are partnerships across engineering and across NSF. So for a dear colleague letter, it's usually for you to, hey, NSF is interested in these topics, and you submit your proposal to the core program that's typically listed on the dear colleague letter. And the solicitation, again, is a timed activity. They usually have a due date, and they might also have additional requirements and maybe some additional criteria in addition to the intellectual merit and broader impacts criteria. So now I want to talk about people, because you're at the heart of NSF mission. And so we have a program in engineering in the EEC division on broadening participation in engineering. And so this program has a number of facets in terms of research for broadening participation, more group team-based efforts of inclusive mentoring hubs, and also centers for equity. And this is through a solicitation, and they're also welcoming planning and conference grants. And so, again, some of the, as a solicitation, it's structured kind of also in a way to have part of the efforts accepted any time, kind of an open topic, and some of the ones that would have a specific due date for that particular piece. So for all solicitations, it's always good to read them several times because they might have some specific requirements, and also really good discussions of the objectives that that particular program is trying to support. Also supporting broadening participation, we have a new partnership between engineering and EDU on these CREST centers, Centers of Research Excellence in Science and Technology. And so this is an effort, a solicitation, to encourage minority-serving institutions to submit proposals that focus on engineering research. And it has some topics. I'm not sure if those topics are exclusive. And this is actually has preliminary proposals due next December. We also have an ongoing solicitation, and this is not just engineering. I believe this is across the foundation of HBCU Excellence in Research. And this is a program targeting HBCUs for research proposals that are also in part capacity building as well. Also operating under our EEC, Engineering, Education, and Centers division is our Revolutionizing Engineering Departments, RED. And so this is an ongoing solicitation that also has various aspects to build the infrastructure for changes to how we educate engineers. And all the and this is open to both four-year institutions and also two-year institutions. So there's various tracks that you can use that focus from planning grants to more extensive efforts. So it's always a good idea to read the solicitation and see what kind of opportunities you can have to enrich your particular department or institution. So for early career support, we have a postdoc program that engineering, I think, collaborates with American Society for Engineering Education, ASEE, on postdocs, and it's called eFellows. And so I just looked at the website. It's, I guess, a rolling submission. And these are postdoc opportunities because, you know, in past years, especially for those interested in doing an academic career, the market has been kind of tight. And so we don't want to lose all the training of all these postdocs that we've invested in. And so this is one opportunity to try to keep that investment we have in that people in the country, frankly. And so another program that engineering has is engineering research initiation. And so I think we've done this 3 cycles now. It's a 2-year program, and the heart of it is research initiation. But a special facet of it is that we're targeting faculty who have not yet received federal funding. There are some exceptions, and also who are from non-R1 institutions. And so we recently we're getting a lot of questions because the new solicitation is not out. I cannot guarantee that a new solicitation will come out until it actually hits the street. Okay, but I can say that we are expecting to have another one, but I can't guarantee it. So that's kind of the wiggle words that I have to say, because it's true. We can't guarantee it until it's actually out on the street. And I'm going to talk tomorrow about the career program. So that's just a coming attraction. I think at 10:45 tomorrow, I'll talk everything career that you could ever want. maybe more something, I don't know. Sometimes I have it in my sleep at this point. So these are a series of supplements. Now recall, one of the good things about getting an NSF grant, in addition to the funding to do the research, is that it opens you up to an opportunity to receive supplements. And so these can be in terms of funding an undergraduate researcher for a summer, what we call an REU, or a teacher, research experience for a teacher. And we also have a veterans research supplement. And interns, I'll talk a little bit more. And then START for community college students and faculty, and research experience and mentoring supplements for cohorts of students. I think those are through FMA grants. And also, in addition to supplements, there's a program that's across NSF for sites for both REUs and RETs. And these are, I think, 4-year grants. Might be 5. I think check the solicitation. Again, I'm not an expert in all these, but these are for site grants. And so this is for funding, I think, for typically cohorts of, typically like 8 or approximately 8 students or teachers to do research as a site grant. Again, there's a separate solicitation for the REU sites and RET sites, but you can also talk to your program director if you have an NSF grant on supplements. Intern, okay, this is an activity that's really kind of exploded, and this is not just for engineering, this is for across the foundation, not just for engineering grants, and it's for your grad students to have a opportunity to kind of expand the skills that they get beyond their research skills that they're getting in your lab. And it's a supplement, and it's basically funding for a 6-month internship with a host, and usually the host is a company or a national lab, and it's a research experience or project that is related to the base grant and the student's current training, and it provides funding and expenses for the student to do this. Now, Prakash Balan is the program officer, and he's very enthusiastic of this program. I guess we're all trying to be enthusiastic for our programs, but he has really, hit the pavement and expanded the partnerships. And so we have partnerships with DOE, I think Air Force. There's a whole slew of interns that he has expanded opportunities So not only for funding for our NSF advance investments, but also opportunities, I think expansion into some of the other national labs, whether they be under the Department of Defense and or Department of Energy. Okay, so I'll just the last topic is partnerships. And one type of grant, this is a research grant, this is a fundamental research grant, but it's a GOLI grant. And so this is a fundamental research type project that you would submit to a core program, but it includes a partnership, usually with an industrial member. And so it's through the participation of the industrial member, there's additional benefits. Maybe your students get more exposure to industrial research setting, or even also the PI as well. And they're typically, they're submitted to a core program. And I think a new feature is that allows some funding to a small business partner. I think that's specific to a business that's under the Small Business Innovative Research eligibility criteria. And so we encourage those who are definitely doing more use-inspired research to look up on this. I think all the requirements are in the PAPG. This is a special type of project that you might benefit your research program and the students that participate in it. Another bigger partnership we have in NSF is the ERC program. And so typically we have a ERC competition every 2 years. I started out in NSF at the ERC program. I always joke that it's basically the gestation of an elephant to birth these ones, basically 2 years. It's not actually far off. And so we have a number of centers, and these are Gen 4 now, so they're really focusing on convergent research that has clear societal outcomes, clear directions in engineering workforce development, creating a culture of inclusion and diversity, and value creation and innovation ecosystem. And so these are very complex multi-institutional teams that work on a problem for about 10 years. To really launch itself. Also has a capacity building flavor as well, because we're really seeding new capabilities across the country for these centers. And, yeah, so really, I guess there's some states that we need to work on in the middle there, so we'll have to do some more outreach. So here's just some examples from the most recent cohort that were selected. CASFER talks about distributive fertilizer production, and they're led by Texas Tech. And then we have an ERC hammer of hybrid autonomous manufacturing moving from evolution to revolution. That's led by Ohio State. And Premier covers precision microbiome engineering, and that's led by Duke University. And ERC for smart streetscapes is led by Columbia University. And I think one effort of an ERC is to come up with your acronym. I think that's one form of a team bonding activity. So the other part of centers that I want to highlight are IUCRCs. And this is a industry university cooperative research centers. This is one of the acronyms that is harder to get. But this is where it has definitely heavy industry participation and funding. And so the NSF funds are really the glue to bring this group of researchers and industrial researchers together. And so the focus is fundamental, and then we start to getting into translational research as well. So that's kind of moving up the basically the pathway of technology readiness. And this program has been going on for a while, and we have numerous investments across the country. And so these are heavily leveraged. Again, NSF provides the glue funding. So we have this stat of 20 million of NSF can leverage 60 million from the members. And also topics. And this is a program where, again, like all of our programs, most of our programs, the ideas come from the community. And so this kind of gives you an idea of all the different topics. And so they have solicitations, they have different phases to start up the center. So if you have an idea for starting up an IUCRC, I think there's various levels of funding to give you some funding to see whether this concept you have could fly. And again, the ideas really come from the community. So I want to start wrapping it up here. And so to emphasize that, again, we're working for you. And the ideas come from the community. So program directors are always interested in your ideas for new research directions. Sometimes we use workshops sometimes to do that, of getting a research community together to brainstorm and say, what are the research opportunities? We have all the NSF website that you can see all the funding opportunities, various deadline mechanisms, and engineering, all the core programs, no deadline. So you submit the proposal when it's ready. And I want to emphasize again and again, don't be afraid to contact us as program directors. Best way to do it is by email. with your research idea, come up with your one-pager. What is your research questions? What are their impact? And use that as a tool to communicate with the program director on for us to give you feedback on the fit of your idea. And then the best way to figure out how to, I'm ahead of myself, is to, so I think we talked about earlier today of all the tools you have to award search, of figuring out what has been funded. Every core program at the bottom has a link where you can see what has been funded from that core program. And volunteer to review. I think you're going to get these, but this is a nice dot that we have set up a new database for you to sign up with your expertise areas. And if you want to volunteer for a reviewer. And so us as program directors, we're increasingly using that resource. But in addition to volunteer to review, it's also a good idea to still do the old-fashioned way of email the program director with your two-page bio sketch, and in the email say your keywords of your expertise in addition. So this, and also communicating. And I want to emphasize that your lab probably aligns with more than one core program. So we want all different ways to keep in touch with us, with funding opportunities. And so it gives you some information to get on some news feeds for upcoming, when solicitations hit the ground, you can be alerted. Not before, once they hit the ground. And thank you so much for your attention. I took a little more time, but I think we still have a lot of time for questions. So thank you very much.
If you have any questions in the room, please be sure to come up to the mic. I'll start with a couple online until we have some in the room as well. Does the Engineering Research Initiation Program apply to research scientists at R1 institutions?
No. For every solicitation, it has two components usually, the institution eligibility and the PI eligibility. And so for the ERI, again, I can only speak for the current version of the solicitation because if there is a new solicitation, I can't really talk about it until it's on the ground. But we've run this solicitation, Engineering Research Initiation, ERI, for 3 years, and it does have an institutional eligibility of non-R1, non-highly research active institutions. I think that's the Carnegie classification language.
Okay. Does being in a state that already has an existing ERC decrease the potential of being awarded?
I can't speak for the ERI program, but I would say NSF is interested in funding the most compelling research proposals, including ERCs. And so clearly, if you're from a state that does have an ERC and you're trying to get an ERC, in any proposal, you want to anticipate reviewer questions. And one of them which would be, you already got an ERC, make the case that what you're having is a different capacity building aspect with different both intellectual and broader impact implications.
How should one submit the eager proposal? You mentioned listed in the DCL, you mentioned. Should they submit it via the core program or contact the program officer?
Well, I think for eagers, and this also applies for raises, first thing you do is it's required to have a concept outline. And so that is, all the requirements for concept outlines are in the PAPG. So, but before you do that, you might want to contact the program officer of the core program that you think that eager would apply to, because you want to conserve your efforts. So the first step is contact your program director. And again, it's always good to have a one-pager, maybe a paragraph of the concept, and get the input of whether this program and the program officer would be interested in inviting an eager. And then you put together the required concept outline. And then for eagers, you actually, because of the new requirements for the PAPG, is they have to be invited. Mm-hmm. And so I believe the program officer has to have an invitation email that I think you include as part of the proposal submission to submit an eager proposal, if you are approved by that program officer, to submit the eager proposal too.
Thank you so much for the great information. Then, do we have any specific program that targeting the people who are technically working on the exploration, research in engineering, but necessarily have a term that they have not received the NSF award before? Then, do we have any kind of support from the people who are engineering, for example, associate or assistant professor, but having the term there that it's eligible just for the people who have not received the NSF award before?
Well, in engineering, we have the solicitation, Engineering Research Initiation, ERI, which is a 2-year initiation grant, but it does have these special for non-R1 institutions and faculty who have not received federal funding, except if there's, in the exceptions, there's always exceptions. We've run that for 3 years. Again, we expect to have a new solicitation, but I can't guarantee it. So that is one example. I must say, for faculty who have not received NSF funding, you are eligible to participate in pretty much all of the funding opportunities at NSF. There might be special solicitations. Granted, it might be a team one that you'd have to partner with some people, but certainly all the core programs are open to you. You do not have to have NSF funding to apply for an NSF program. You do, so just realize that. Yeah.
And also, could you please explain more about the mid-career award? You explained about the early career. How about the mid-career award? Thank you. Mid-career award.
I know there. Okay, I know there's a mid-career. So there's a solicitation in NSF called MCA. I think it's called Mid-Career Advancement, but I don't believe if engineering currently participates in it. I don't think it does. But that is a specific solicitation that other directorates in NSF participate in that is, I think, specifically, for associate level faculty. Our CMMI division has an opportunity, I think it's called Bright, where it's a couple of tracks, and one of it is for mid-career. In CBET, we have an opportunity called RARE, which is for faculty who have undergone a hiatus from research. We don't go into the reasons why a hiatus occurred, but this is a special opportunity to submit an unsolicited proposal through that solicitation to kind of restart your research career.
I just had a question for the CBET engineering, biology, and health cluster specifically. I was wondering if you could comment on the types of basic and translational research that they might be interested in funding. For example, is research dealing with computational approaches for translational applications in health? Would that be something that is applicable for that cluster?
So in CBET, again, we're very segmented. So we have 4 programs in the engineering, biology, and health cluster. Biomedical, this is embarrassing. Biosensing, biophotonics, DARE, which is fundamental research for disability, and engineering biomedical technology. And that's not the correct answer, and I'm sorry. I'm having a brain fog. But it's through, I think it's important to read those program descriptions, and that clusters, there's 4 of them, and that will give you an idea of the types of topics. And then you schedule a call with one of those program officers, because one of the key questions in that particular cluster is, does it fit your programs versus maybe it's more applicable to NIH? Or actually, and also the other question is whether that's more appropriate for the programs in our biosciences, biological sciences directorate. So I'm not sure, I'm sorry, that's a non-answer, but I think the key thing is to write up your research idea, and it might be a paragraph, and then communicate with program officers on their opinion on what you're trying to do.
That's great, thank you. And I also had another question. on another specific NSF opportunity. It's the Smart Health and Biomedical Research in the area of AI and Advanced Data Science, SCH program. It's like NSF 23-614. And I do see that the Directorate of Engineering is listed there, so not sure if you could speak a little bit more to how to apply for this particular opportunity. Would that be through the NSF or the NIH? Yeah, thank you.
So I'm not familiar with that program, but I think that's a solicitation. And so on the cover of a solicitation, usually there might be a generic email, but frequently there's actually real people emails. And so to email those people your specific questions for that particular solicitation. And also that applies usually with, those one-pagers as well. I work on the future manufacturing proposal solicitation, for example. And so when that has hit the street, we frequently get, one-pagers from people of saying, does this fit or not, before the deadline closes. So the whole theme is please don't be shy about communicating with us.
And I can tell you with that particular solicitation you just named, there are a list of program officers that you can contact that are specifically designated for that solicitation.
Yeah.
So if you just access, you gave the solicitation number, when you go there, you'll see program contacts.
Yeah.
So, and you can reach out to any of them for information about it. Okay? And another thing for the MCA, the mid-career advancement, engineering is not one of the programs.
I didn't think
Okay.
I don't think we currently participate with that.
Okay.
I have one quick question. So I know we have been talking about a lot of new opportunities and supplements, but can you say something about continuation or renewal grants? Like I hear that there are things like this, but I don't know how to approach it. What would be your advice to a faculty in that scenario?
Right, so actually look in the PAPG, because there's specific language and requirements for what to do to request, I think they're called a renewal.
Yeah.
I think they're, was it accomplishment-based renewals? And so there's specific requirements, and it's a good idea to contact your program officer of that grant to talk about that.
Okay.
There's two ways of structuring the proposal, and your program director can talk to you about that, but it still goes through external review. So it's still treated
it's
as
like
a new proposal.
Yeah.
But talk to your program officer about that mechanism, and the requirements are in the PAPG.
Okay. So I should be looking at 24-1 PAPG, not 20.
24-1 is our
Okay.
PAPG right now, and that's the
Okay.
only one that counts.
Okay, I was
Right now.
wondering. I was wondering if it was like when it got approved.
No.
or the current-
24
Okay.
is supreme right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Delete all prior versions. We still have, I see 11 minutes. Don't be shy. Questions?
I'd like to ask about submitting proposal to two programs. Let's say there are some topics which fits both programs simultaneously, like electrochemical system and MOMS. And I know we have to select one best fit, but let's say it will review equally average in both, but combining it's really great proposal for both programs. Is there any possibility to submit to two programs simultaneously?
No, you can't submit the same proposal to two programs. But this is a good question, because this applies to both unsolicited and also career proposals, because this is career season. So talk to the program officers, put together your one-pager, contact both program officers of both programs with your one-pager and say, hey, see attached, I have this project, I'm not sure what is the best fit, and I'm contacting both of you because I think it could align either way. And then you can hopefully set up some conversations with them. So on the cover page, you can only submit a proposal to one program, but there is on the cover page that you can indicate secondary programs, and there's no downside to doing that. And so say you decide to submit your proposal to Program A, you can put Program B on the secondary program. And so program officers, we like each other, we talk to each other, and we see what, things come in, and there's ways we can use it. We can say, well, when we read the full proposal, it looks like, based on the proposals I have that I'm doing, that it fits within my family of proposals, we're always trying to find the most appropriate review environment. We're working for you. And maybe I just review it in my program. Maybe Program Director B gives me some ideas for reviewers or ad hoc review. Maybe we have a number of these proposals and we do a panel together. There's no downside for indicating proposals that might align with one and more program. For career, there's a twist. Because for career, the way it's designed, it's really designed for the bulk of your project, maybe not all of it, but the bulk of it, to align with the program that you have chosen. And so if you're doing multidisciplinary research or might align with one program, we're not, even with unsolicited, again, we're not reviewing your lab. We are reviewing projects, specific projects that you have put together. And so for the career, it's that 5-year project. And so you have to design a 5-year project or a 3-year project for an unsolicited typically that fits within the program. And especially for career, that's really critical. And again, you can indicate secondary programs. And if you have a project that you think really spans more than 2 programs, I mean, one thing you might want to look at is what you're going to do. And maybe you adjust the scope of what you're going to do in that particular project. So maybe you don't do everything. Maybe you concentrate on steps 1 through 3 and don't do steps 4 and 5 that might be over there. So this is a question of communicating with program directors and also under your own control of how you design what you put in the project.
Thank you.
Is there any other? I'm on a roll.
Okay, here's one related to ERI. If an early career researcher has been a co-PI on an NSF grant during their postdoc period, can the researcher still apply for ERI during their first tenure track position? Again,
The current solicitation is not on the street, but you can get an idea with previous versions of the solicitation. And I believe that a role as you being a postdoc, I just want to pause because I'm not sure about that, whether that had, since you were a co-PI, I'm not sure if that counted, that might count as federal, I'm not sure about that specific one. For ERI, there is a generic email, eri@nsf.gov, and I encourage the questioner to send that question to the ERI team, because off the top of my head, I don't want to say something that's incorrect.
Hi, if we want to submit a unsolicited collaborative proposal with more than one PI or more than one institution, are we able to request a budget that is sort of double that of a single PI, one graduate student, or is it somewhat less?
Budget is one of those topics that for all types of proposals, career proposals and unsolicited, talk to your program director about norms. Typically, when you're putting together a proposal, it was talked about yesterday, one of the key feature was the resources, and the budget is the resource. And so when you're putting together a proposal, you're saying you're going to do a number of activities that are supported by the resources, and that's also part of the criteria of the resources to do it. So for the review phase, in my opinion, to include the resources to do the work that you propose. All proposals are subject to budget negotiation if selected for award. But personally, in my opinion, and this is what I tell PIs to my program, is to make sure that the content, the work that you do, both in the intellectual merit and broader impacts, is supported by the resources, which include the budget. And so I think typical things are usually one grad student in each lab and up to 1 month's summer salary for the PI. But that's, all things budget is one of those hot button things that's good to also talk with the program director of the program that you're thinking of submitting to. So I hope I've, just as a recap of that, as program directors, don't be shy. We work for you. We had that new thing to volunteer for a reviewer, but email us with your 2-page PIO sketch, and in the email put kind of the keywords of your expertise. Your lab probably coincides with more than one proposal. Do you have a question?
Yes. For research that is more connected to applications or industry implementations, would it be better to consider specific solicitations, or is it better to go to core programs?
I think there's opportunities in both. Again, in the core programs, they vary from blue sky to use inspired. And again, we have this type of proposal called a goalie that by its very design is a collaboration with an industrial partner. It's still fundamental research. And as you get into solicitations, they might have more special requirements, or in the centers where it starts to go up the technology readiness level in terms of technology maturation. So I think there's opportunities really across NSF for these types of collaborations with industry. Any other? Okay, well, thanks for coming and listening, and good luck in all your endeavors.